Welcome to BA Bootcamp. My name is Luuk Vermaas, and together with Gert Zwedijk, we ensure that you stay informed of the latest developments in the field of business analysis. We combine different theoretical approaches with our extensive practical experience from the field so that you immediately leave our sessions with tangible tips and ideas to put in practice in your daily work. Have fun watching, and if you want to stay informed in our latest videos, follow us on YouTube. Perfect. Well, hi everybody. Again, thank you for joining the session and showing the interest. I'm honored that so many people attended on this Saturday early morning. I think, it's a topic that is really close to my heart. I really like the subject. That's also the reason why I dedicated my full-time job to it. So hopefully I can inspire some of you to also look at this possibility of becoming a business analyst, and also show you the reason why I think it's interested, and also show some of the differences, maybe positioned being now an admin or a consultant or an architect or any other role. How is that then perceived differently from being a BA? And I think this image is basically something I asked an illustrator to make, because sometimes this is the feeling I have. Being hanging there in between the classic business IT discussions, trying to let them come together, right? That's basically what you try to achieve as a business analyst. You're looking for opportunities to improve, which can be small things, which can be large organizational changes. That doesn't really matter, because every little step of improvement is an improvement. Which often starts with how do we bring business and technology together so that we can benefit from each other and make sure that they understand each other's language. So as a business, you always have this classical thing of, oh, did I ask the impossible? Because, apparently some people saw some YouTube videos that you can do all kinds of cool stuff with virtual reality. So you ask the business analyst, well, can you deliver that? And then, they don't really understand the technical implications and everything that, goes around behind the scenes to actually get to those really cool, nice, new innovations or improvements. And then explaining that to an IT is often difficult because they do not speak the same language. So this is really typical where I see a BA being. Of course, this is exaggerated. I'm not walking like this every day. But sometimes you might be in a situation that you think, oh shit, how am I going to bring these two things together? That's going to be the talk of today. So I have prepared some topics that I think are nice to discuss. So I think step one is why I actually became a BA. What do I think is interested about it, and why did I make the decision to go more in that direction instead of maybe going more for the maybe consultant development direction. I will also give you my perception on business analysis, because business analysts and the job or the work, the business analysis you do is a very broad topic. It's perceived different by many organizations. So sometimes BA in one organization can be different, doing things differently than the other organization. That makes it sometimes a difficult a topic to discuss, because it's not as rational. So I will give you my perception, which is not maybe the reality in your company, but I will think from my point of view, what I think a business analyst should do, what are kind of the activities they should perform during the job. How do you get started as a BA? So I will give some ideas around. I already got some questions from Sergey, like how do you actually start if you enter a new industry? Where do you actually start to learn about this industry? So I will give some learnings there. Also some of my own learning journey tips and tricks that I have where to get started. I will also discuss some of the challenges you have as a BA, which I think are very common. You can just take them along, and whenever project you're going in, then remind that you take these challenges into those discussions. And I will also briefly touch upon some tools and techniques which can help. At least it helped me as a BA to really translate or let's say putting the two worlds together. So one of the things that I really like to do is visualization, prototyping. So I will share a bit about that as well. And I will end with a few quick tips and tricks that you can take straight away from this meeting, hopefully putting into practice from Monday onwards. Yeah, so I already had this slide in. Normally, I would say don't be afraid to unmute, because I know in digital sessions, it's always like me doing a lot of talking, and then at the end, questions are stacking up. I personally like more interactive sessions, and I really like questions, because especially on this topic, like I said, there is no one truth, right? There can be many perceptions of what a business analyst is doing or should be doing. So it can raise some discussions. I already understood from Sergey, we prefer to use the chat first. So I would say, if you have a question, please use the chat, and I will just pause after every slide to see if we can. Then, if we need to pause to answer questions that are specifically for those slides. So a bit about me. As you can see, I'm also a proud trailblazer. I've been in the ecosystem for Salesforce now for around 7 years. I started my working career about 10 years ago at Accenture, where I was working for the outsourcing department. So I was working for KLM as a service employee, taking up complaints from customers that had a flight with KLM, and I can tell you a lot will go wrong. Luckily, a lot is going good, but a lot of things can go wrong. So I have spent the first year as a service rep, and that really learned me how to look at service organizations, which got my interest. So I started to become more interested in the technology side of things. So I started as a Salesforce admin. That was actually the first moment I encountered Salesforce. And probably as much as you as well have that, is you fell in love with the product. It could do things that you would never thought you could be doing. I'm not a developer, or I don't have a development background, but I could create all kinds of things all of a sudden, automations, workflow rules, just by a few clicks. So that really got me. So I became very much interested in it, became part of the so-called Ohana community, and I had the opportunity to actually join Salesforce, which was really an honor, being part of the company itself, really seeing how they operate from the inside. So I started as a specialist, Marketing Cloud specialist, I've been Service Cloud specialist. Today I'm focusing more on sales, so I really like to see the full broad picture, especially, again, coming back to the business analyst, should have this whole bird's view on what are all the different products you can, use to reach certain business objectives. So I like to really be broad oriented in the technology stack of Salesforce. So spent 4.5 years there, and then I joined Van Eigens. I think Doria definitely knows Van Eigens. I'm not sure if anyone else knows this. They are still quite a new partner, a small partner, and that's also exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to join a small partner to also learn a bit more about other things than only working with Salesforce, but also learning about how do you actually build a company, because that's also one of my personal interests. It's entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, due to Corona, that stopped for me after 1 year. Unfortunately, a lot of customers by that time were retail customers, so I had to quit. And that took me to the next step in my career choice, which is starting for myself. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm actually a self-employed, a full-time consultant. It's the general term, but I prefer to let me hired through companies that looking for business analysts specifically. And I will tell you in a moment why I chose that direction. So that's a bit about me. Later I will talk a bit more about my learning journey, but just to give you an idea how I came to this conclusion of wanting to go to a business analyst, what made me go more towards, I would say, call it the business side rather than the IT side. So if you would look at it as a scale, right, where you have IT in the one hand, business on the other hand, the classical approach, right? Then my journey was typically like at the IT side, like I said, starting as a Salesforce admin, became a specialist, a consultant. I did some project management skills to also learn a bit more about how do actually projects fail or are successful. I learned a lot about that. And I had the opportunity to be a product owner for 1 year. So I really had the whole, I would say, role glossary, except from the development point of view, because again, that's not my specialty. It's really from a functional point of view, a product point of view. This is my journey I had taken so far. But still, there were things that I like to do more. And especially those things I have written down here would make me go into more business analysis type of activities that I liked. Therefore, being a business analyst is actually what I like to be doing. So I like to be directly involved with the business. So I like to be present in the discussions where we talk about options for change rather than already getting the let's say path forward and think about a solution instead of I want to be in the forefront. I don't want to think about the solution yet. I really want to know why we are going to do this. Why do we need to change? And then let the people that know the product very well think about the solution. So I always call it, I like to think in options versus solutions, right? So that's one of the things that I came to realize, after being on all these roles, that I like to do that. Also, I have a favor for processes. I'm this kind of nerd that likes to draw boxes on a paper and squares and all these things that make up a process and decision splits and everything. I really like to do that because it gives a good idea on, okay, where can we improve? So the lean methodology or the Six Sigma methodology, those are methodologies that are preferred working with to really see where's the waste, where can we really help an organization become better. And I still saw this annoying and an irritating gap, and it's a very cliche, but it's so true, the gap between IT and business, right? People tend to not get an agreement, or they don't want to understand, or they just don't simply understand the same language we're speaking. But it's still true that putting a business with, I would say, clear IT, so let's say development, without any consensus of, okay, what is it actually that we're trying to do? Somebody that can hold the mirror against the business and say, why are we doing this? Otherwise, you will get a product that might be exploding of features, but we actually never challenge why we're building these features. And that's what I like to do. I like to challenge the business, and I like to then translate that in a nice way so that IT exactly understands what is it that we're going to build. One of the things that I also like is the change part, where I like to interact with people, especially people that are doing the work, so sales agents, service agents, marketing people. I want to understand really, okay, what is it that you try to achieve? And I think we can do it in a better way, but that doesn't say they think that is a better way as well. So I really would like to see them, getting them to my point of view, saying, hey, what if we would do this? Do you think it will improve the way we work? Really guiding the change. You cannot say, hey, by the way, tomorrow you will work differently. Everybody, I think, knows that that is not how you manage a project, and that is not how you would like to implement a new technology or a new tool or a new product, right? It's also about the journey towards that change. And that's, as a business analyst, also an important part, because you're the one talking with the business. So you also have to take that into consideration and say, okay, we're going to change the way people work. How are we going to do that without having too much resistance? And that's really take them along on that journey of change. That's something I like to do. And I like to build business cases, really about the value we're creating. What are the KPIs we're measuring? Does that reflect the business objectives you have? And in the end, also the requirements you have to build a certain product to achieve that, or a process that achieves that. So it's again about challenging, about building a business case. Why should we do this instead of already start building it? So yeah, that's a bit of the reason why I chose to step a bit outside of what I call then the IT side, moving a bit more towards the business side, so that I could focus on these topics, which are of course very high level, because later I will also talk about, of course, it's all about requirements gathering, which you will hear a lot of businesses say when you talk about what is a business analyst doing. It's getting requirements, right? That's basically what you hear often. To me personally, yes, that is indeed the core, what you should be doing. But to get those requirements, you have to focus on all these things that you see here on the screen. right? Because there's nobody in the world that will tell you, you will go sit in front of a person and you have your notebook. Okay, well, tell me, what are your requirements? You write them down and you go to the IT and say, well, these are the requirements, good luck. That's not a business analyst's job, in my opinion. So yeah, maybe stop here for a second. I don't know if people have similar thoughts or were also doubting about, am I in the right place? Should I maybe move more towards a business? Any people that have a similar a feeling or maybe a question around this topic?
Anyone wants to ask? Yeah, if you would rate importance of these 5 items on the right side, what will be, top 3?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think one important thing to become a good BA, and then the word trust is coming in, right? So basically, you have to see yourself as you are an outsider that is going to enter a business, right? And that business can be either the service organization, the marketing organization, whatever organization or department you're stepping into, right? You're this outsider. So everybody knows that if a business analyst is coming onto your department or into your organization, then they know, okay, those people, they want to change things. So what is the first response that often people will have? It's like, oh, resistance, we don't want to change, right? So that's an important thing you have to keep in mind. So what is the most important thing? So when you have direct business involvement, it's about building trust with the business. Start to learn and speak their language. Don't say, hey, I'm here looking for change. What shall we change? No, it's also it's about learn. How do you work currently? Observing, talking, be generally interested in what they're doing. Find out why they are doing this currently. Why are we doing the things we do? You have to be constantly. Now I forgot the word Dutch. Nieuwsgierig, curious. You have to be curious about this and constantly asking this why question. And then people see that you're really generally interested in not just changing for the sake of change, but you're really doing it to improve the way people work and make their lives better. So that's, I think, crucial, number one. I think from a practical point of view, to also make sure that you can, because one of the difficult things is that, okay, then you have all this information, right? You have trusted the business, you're talking a lot with the business, you're observing, but then you have to also, you need the ability to take all of that information and put it in a form or in a visualization where also other people understand it, and that you can address, look, this is the part where people struggle and this is the part where people like and people don't like to change. And what I call is then I really believe in process flows really help in those discussions. So creating a as is situation and then working to a certain to be situation. So talking about the point focus on process improvement, it's also about learn the techniques of actually making good process flows so that everybody understands. Yeah, and you have, I will talk about that later as well. And it's really about that guiding change. People really underestimate that part. So those would be the 3 top things, because bridging the IT gap is basically the broadest of it all, right? It's all those topics until the bridging the gap. And building the business case. Not always a business case is required. That's more when you have really big projects. So I would say those top 3 would be key.
Thank you, Luuk. We have several questions coming via chat. If answer come in later slides, let me know. So one question from Joel: what have you come across which is something that repeats during going through these 5 steps?
So that's something that really comes back every time.
Yeah.
In this case, it's the business involvement part, which actually, if you read behind that line, it's stakeholder management. That's something that will repeatedly throughout. It's not that I'm going to talk to the business once, I'm going to back into my little corner office, writing down all these results I have, and then tell to the whatever IT department you're in, this is what we're going to do. And that's not how it works. It's about, okay, I just had this information, I'm going to write it down, I'm going to visualize it, I'm going to make my documentation, my process flows, or whatever, how you can think, make it an easy, digestible piece of advice you can bring. Then you go back to the stakeholders again. You're going to talk about, hey, this is what I found. Do you see yourself in this? And then you can have a discussion, and then you will see that maybe other people will be involved. And so that is the continuously loop you will be in. It's the continuing back and forward to stakeholders, verifying if you have assumed, right, something that you actually shouldn't do, but get rid of those assumptions and make them explicit by continually talking to the business. That's really something that returns throughout the project or process you're in.
Thank you. Paul has a question, and I have a feeling maybe it will be covered later. Do you have any preference for model process for change?
Yeah, so I think I will cover that a little bit as well. Maybe not to the extent, but maybe if we hit that slide, we can touch upon the specific question you have. So yes, let's take that. I'm actually not sure if that's already one.
Next question from Hara. Where do you draw the line between business analyst and Salesforce consultant?
That's a good question. I think I have that in my next slide. So again, this is my own visualization of how I would see it, right? Again, this can be perceived differently by organization, maybe by your own role you're doing. As some people that are product owner are much more focused on business than others, but this is typically how I would sketch the scenario. Where are you on a scale of business and IT as a business analyst? Where I also believe that as a business analyst, you can have different objectives. You can either be very operational, so discussing minor changes in improving workflows, versus more tactical, right? So how we're going to change people working in this department in general. Or strategic is how we're going to enable an organization to change, which in this case can be Salesforce, really about the change part of it. So you have three areas as a business analyst where you can, I would say, start learning about the operations and then move your way towards become more strategic. I like to be more in the middle of the two and the three, where it's really about more the change part, where we can really make an impact and change an organization. And where I see as a business analyst, I have the most connection with, from an IT point of view, it's the solution consultant or the consultant. Because, and I think that I have that in one of my slides later. Is it this one? No, not yet. It will come one of my slides later where I explicitly make how I see the difference. But this is where I would see you are actively working in from an IT/business scale, if you would have to call it like that. I personally believe that we should be much more working together in general, and that business analysts are really, well, the reason why the role of a business analyst has been created is the fact that we created this gap. So on the one hand, you can say, oh, that's nice because now we have all these nice roles available. But on the other hand, it's also strange because it basically means that why do we need this person in between to let people talk, right? It's also actually a bit weird. So I still believe that we can come much more close together. But yeah, until that time, we do need definitely business analysts to cover that gap. And I would see they're around here in this area. Would you agree? Some people maybe see it differently?
In my opinion, it's a good way of thinking about BA role. Yeah.
So the business analyst is definitely somebody who is more focused on the business than it is IT. So it's also not that you're exactly in the middle, because that's not true. Because in the end, the trust should be built in the business, and as long as you do your job well, then IT will also love you because they are already happy that they don't get all these crazy requirements that were never challenged. So that's basically where you start. I'm not saying that you don't have to build a relationship with the IT, because that is very important. But by doing a good job active participating in the business, you will be loved, I guess, and maybe some of you already have experience with that do you prefer a user story with context, process steps, and everything included, and the reason why we do it, what is the importance already scaled from a business perspective and priority, versus one line story and like, yeah, we need this, and nobody knows why. Right? So I think that's something that I really focus on when I provide requirements to in user stories, in G-references, making it very tangible. I rather spend more time on writing good user stories than because in the end, I personally believe that it starts with the BA writing a good user story with acceptance criteria, why we're doing this, and giving the right context, which will speed up development, reduce test errors, and increases acceptance rates. Right? So it's about you're in the beginning of that chain of the development lifecycle, and all these steps can have little errors and issues. And I personally believe that comes from the fact that there wasn't a good requirement designed in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah. One question coming from Monique. I think it's related to your industry experience. Do you work preferably in niche, or do you work universally in different business markets / industries?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I will cover that topic later. That's a good question. I will cover that. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question about depending on size of organization, you may not have dedicated business analyst position. How you see business analyst aspects embedded in other roles, because organizations differ by size, etc.
Yeah, very good question. I am also covering that. So that's that one is coming. I will quickly jump to the next slide. So this is a bit more about my personal journey and how I kind of came up with I wanted to go more towards the business analyst role, and where does it, to my opinion, where do you fit in then in terms of the bigger picture? Mm-hmm. Where maybe one topic to stress is that, of course, today I will be also focusing more on because yes, my niche is Salesforce from a technology point of view. But as a business analyst, you should be able to look wider than that, right? So as a business analyst, you will never be focused on one product. And I think that's an important thing to keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah, we have an additional question coming from Sasmita.
Yep.
As BA, have you come across tough customers? And what is your advice to handle such customers who think, why do you make it complex? We are happy the way system is.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think that's the toughest part of the BA is challenging. And it's the toughest part, but it's also one of the most important parts of as a skill set you should learn, right? You have to challenge your business. So I had a question one day from a customer that said, so they're working with Salesforce, and this was about Service Cloud, and people know working with Service Cloud, you have this agent supervisor thing, right, where you can track everybody who's working on what, and it's good. I would not say it's perfect; it can be improved, but it does what it does, and they want to build it completely custom because there were some things in there they didn't really like. They wanted to build it completely custom, and I was like, oh Jesus, okay, how am I going to convince them that this is not the right approach? So yeah, then your thinking starts, right? Okay, how am I going to convince that using this product is not going to be improved by building it fully custom? And then you have to think about implications such as maintainability. Will it cost us more to maintain X versus the as is, or the new situation as the as is situation? Development, innovation, Salesforce does that for you on the agent supervisor, right? Every release you have new features and functionality. Building something custom, you have to build all of that. What they then put in, you also have to put in there. So you're basically you need to develop twice. It's not only setting it up, it's also about maintaining it, developing it forwards, keeping pace with Salesforce developments, copying all those features over in your custom development. So by having a lot of talks and about really showing them, okay, but what is it really that you're looking for? Because often you need to ask the cliche one again, but ask why 5 times. So I want to have this supervisor dashboard. Why? Because I want to track my KPIs and measurement better. Okay, why do you want to track your KPIs? Well, because it's about the performance of our business. Okay, but why do you really explicitly want to performance that part of the business? Right? It's really cliche, but it's about, in the end, it was about they couldn't really get a sense of what a person is doing because they had the feeling that people were not doing enough. So I said, okay, but that's a different story. We can build that with performance dashboards on an agent level. So all of a sudden, the requirement of building an agent supervisor became a dashboard with agent productivity. But it's about asking the why question continuously. And that helps in convincing, because it's the art of convincing that if you really believe that this is not the way to go, and I'm not against customization, because sometimes I believe you should do it. But in this case, I wasn't convinced that this is the way to go. Does that answer your question? And then again, any customer is different, right? So some will be more easier to convince than others. Some are just stubborn. Then sometimes it's also, then you have to let it go and say, okay, well, I will prove my point later.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Sometimes you need to really defend customer position and educate them.
Yes.
And this education round can be short or long depending on people aspect. But if you strongly believe that this is how it should be, because have knowledge, you have experience, yeah, you need kind of, maybe fight is not the right word,
No.
but
No, you have to have this good discussion, and you really what I always try to do, and that's also again why is the many hats of a business analyst, because as a business analyst you have to be able to wear different hats, especially in this situation. Try to wear the hat of that manager of the service organization that's being pushed by her manager to come up with these numbers and improve the productivity, right? So they are forced to look into solutions. They don't know the platform as well as you do. They're a user. They're not an active, I would say, part of a community learning every day about all the new cool stuff and feature Salesforce is releasing. So really take that into consideration when you talk. I think Sergey mentioned the perfect word, educating. We should be much more educating the business. So what I always like to do is when there's a new release of Salesforce, and I will scan through it and I will take out those things that I think are relevant for that part of the business. I make a short summary presentation why I think these things can benefit them. And then you try to bring that together. Yeah. Okay, shall we continue? Yeah. So business analysis, what is it actually? Exactly. Yeah. What is it? What is business? I mean, everybody can probably think of something. There are a few, I would say, schools around business analysis that try to capture a specific definition. There are different schools. You have BCS, you have the IREB, you have the IIBA. Those are all specific. I will touch upon that later as well. They are practices that trying to standardize a certain framework, how to do proper business analysis. Yeah, so I will touch upon that later. But I personally, I use the IIBA version. That's also why where I'm certified in. And so they use this definition. So business analysis is the practice of enabling change in an enterprise by defining needs and recommending solutions that deliver value to stakeholders. Very broad, right? This can be this can be anything, but I think the summary is it. As a BA, you live every day to make the organization a little bit better, right? And by making it better, making sure you don't forget that there's also change involved, there's stakeholders involved, and you have to map those all together. So the needs from the stakeholders versus the solutions that need to be communicated, those need to match. That's basically what you do as a BA. Simply putting that more to a Salesforce flavor, so to call. If you would be a specific Salesforce business analyst, then you are actually enabling the Salesforce technology to drive change, because it's already a given in some organization that they work with Salesforce. So then it's about, okay, how can we use Salesforce to the advantage of improve things we're already doing and recommend solutions to stakeholders. Actually, the example I just gave, do a roadshow whenever there's a release of Salesforce, do a roadshow internally into your organization with the business stakeholders and tell them, look at these cool new features. I think this can really benefit you because X, Y, Z. That would be typically, I think, a business analyst working with Salesforce should be doing. Or some others would say, you are performing magic. Because a lot of people don't really know what a business analyst is doing, actually, right? The same as it's this perceived role. Again, organizations sometimes even think differently about it. So, okay, you're going to talk with business, you do something, call it magic, and then there are also all of a sudden all kinds of requirements, right? So that perform magic, that's exactly the part that is unclear for everybody what you're doing. You can use 20 dozen of techniques to get to the requirements, right? But what is the right way? It really consists of, okay, I need to plan my approach. I need to decide on how I'm going to capture all the requirements, but especially how are you going to maintain all the requirements? If you have a small project with, say, okay, or not even a project, but just this minor improvement of improving a workflow rule, then of course you don't have to do a lot of documentation and work. But currently, I'm working on improving the sales process for a global organization. So I have 32 countries. They all have requirements. I need to keep track on a certain way. That, okay, some are global, some are local, some are. So it's all of that is in this perform magic part that you are responsible for. I'm touching on that later as well, but this is always a thing I'd use if I talk to customers. What is a BA doing? I say, oh, I do a lot of magical stuff. So on the model part, so I think there was one specific question on models. If you're really in, so I don't have a lot of information in this presentation around models or frameworks, because I think it can go quite deep, and I can probably talk for a day. But I think this I wanted to highlight. It's called the Puppet model. I think many of you might have seen it. It's also often used when you look up digital transformation. You always see this triangle with people, technology, and process, right? So this is a bit similar, but it's around what are the things you need to bring together to make sure that you can become a good BA. So having those many hats, you have to understand the organization. You need to be aware of, okay, what is the information infrastructure we have? What is the technology we're using currently? How do processes work? And which people are actually working with those technology and performing those processes. So this is just a very, especially used in this case, BCS school, again, of business analysis, where this model is explained. So how can you put this in practice, just for as a learning exercise? If you know that it's a given that regarding the information and technology that's being used, if that is Salesforce, then try to think about, okay, how will Salesforce impact, or how will Salesforce change the organization, the processes, or the way people work? Try to answer those questions for yourself whenever you're in a project where you're going to do something, implement a new feature, do something, or implementing or rolling out Salesforce to a different department. Think about these questions as well if you really want to put your BA hat on, right? Not only think about, okay, we have Salesforce, we have marketing team, we need Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and we need to be sent emails. Okay, but how are they doing that currently? What are the challenges they are having? Is the process actually that they're currently doing, is that the right process? So, because otherwise we're going to implement a tool on a process that didn't work before. So then the new tool will not specifically help improving the process. You know what I mean? So often it takes more than only putting in a technology stack and say, well, this works, it's proven, look at all the slides, Dreamforce, look at all those happy customers, it works. No, it only works if everything comes together. The process, the organization, and the people. They all need to come together with the technology, and that will in the end drive a good result. And not by only focusing on one specific part. Same applies that if you only focus on people, you will never change because people are generally resistant to change, right? So it's all about bringing these components together. So again, as a note, try to ask yourself, which project you're currently in, ask yourself these 3 questions. Or ask them to the business or whoever is your stakeholder. Just ask them. They will probably think, oh, hey, that's interesting. You're actually interested in how I feel about this. So yeah, see if you can apply it. So I know this might not be covering the question earlier because this is a short example. Is there any specific questions around models or frameworks people have?
Yeah, Paul, do you want to elaborate or we can move on?
Because I was actually wondering, so let's say that we have an organization who wants to use Salesforce, but that they're actually used to a whole other system. And my question was more of that, if you want to implement Salesforce while the organization actually has quite some resistances to change, what is maybe a model which is then one of your preference?
Yeah, so in that case, if you know that they're working with a tool and they're actually okay with it, they don't see so basically they don't see the reason for change. So apparently somebody on the top has chosen Salesforce as the next tool to go for. Again, I'm now filling in some blanks. This is often how it happens. Top management saying, yes, we want Salesforce. We went to Dreamforce. It's awesome tool. We want it. So they say we're going to go for Salesforce. They have seen the most beautiful demos, right? They have seen the Ferraris and everything. And then all of a sudden it starts and the project team needs to implement it. And then all of a sudden the business wasn't really brought along in these discussions, right? Because it was all happening on the top levels. So actually you're starting all over again in this case, but in this stage you don't have all the resources from Salesforce anymore that are selling it. So if you're a BA or a person in the organization working with Salesforce and you need to now bring it to another department that doesn't really want to change, then leave the Salesforce discussion. Don't start a conversation about, hey, we're going to change your tool. We're going to implement Salesforce now. No, just by already changing the conversation to, hey, by the way, you might have heard that we want to improve things we're doing. But before we do, we would like to learn from you. What are your pain points? What are the things you're running into today that could make your lives easier? And then you take that information, regardless, you don't talk about technology, you don't talk about solutions, you only talk about actually, challenges. I don't like to call it issues because then it sounds like, business has a lot of issues. No, what are the challenges? Where do they think we can improve? You take that knowledge, you go back with the team, whoever team you're working with, say, hey, well, this is actually what is the real pain point of the organization. If we can now build a demo, proof of concept, whatever you want to call it, MVP, that highlights those things, present that to the business, will much likely open up more conversation, but at least they see that you're listening. Often it's the listening part that is not, that is forgotten. And that's also the reason why people don't want to change, because they say, yeah, you never asked me the question anyway, so why should I listen to a conversation you want to start with me about a change? Which is, yes, it's difficult. I'm not saying this is easy. This is a tough thing. Again, as a BA, you're in the middle of this conversation. You need to drive this conversation. And
thank you.
Important, find the people that can help you, because you're not alone as a BA. Often it's like, oh, this is the BA. He's going to take care of everything. No, in this case, I had a similar challenge. Okay, we're going to, in this case, they're working with Salesforce, but we're going to change the way they work with Salesforce. And I was like, yeah, okay, but why? And it works fine. Like, I mean, we're used to it, so why should we change? It costs training, and no, okay, I had a tough fight. I couldn't really make the case. And I said, okay, I need help. So I asked senior management, say, okay, we need to build the case for change. I cannot do that personally myself. I can help create it, but I need input, right? So always make sure that you find the people that can help you to whatever thing you're building. That can be the case for change, it can be any other business case, but find people that can help you get your story on a paper or on a slide or on a whatever, right? Don't try to fight this battle alone because you will lose definitely.
Yeah. So I have one more question. Maybe it's too specific, but I'm just putting it out there, and I hope you can answer it.
Sure.
So from an organizational psychology perspective, there are like some theories who can make changes for organizations quite effective. And always when I look at the Salesforce ecosystem, the openness, the really platform to change, I'm wondering like what process might be the one best applicable for an organization implementing Salesforce?
Yeah, that's indeed a very, very good question. And I don't believe personally that there's one process that will fit every use case. It's always about because the people part, so people and organization. So you have heard the sentence probably as well, is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Basically, an organization and their people, that they are forming the culture. So depending on what kind of culture you're stepping into in an organization, you will also need to you need to learn, or you need to understand also as a business analyst specifically, what tools do I bring to this organization to make it to bring it to a successful result. And that's why you see so many different methodologies and frameworks, because there is no one single framework that will fit and apply in every situation. And because, to be honest, I was in the exact same spot where I was asking myself the exact same question you have. I mean, there should be one process that if I just run through these steps, it all magically, will end up well. But then when I, started to have more of the discussions and become part of more different organizations, seeing different organizations, I felt, okay, now I understand where the true power also of a BA comes in. He or she is the one that is actually deciding on. I have an approach I can show you later on. I have it in one of the slides as an attachment. That's really talking about the first step as a BA, what you do. It's not about running into the business to get requirements. It also starts with a plan. You need to have a plan. How am I going to? So you of course need to have the plan of getting the objective from the end. What's the end goal? What is the objective we're trying to reach? So you will analyze the internal organization, and then you make a plan how we're going to go in the business. How we're going now how will we reach the objective, knowing that this is the situation I'm going into. Which tools, which techniques, which am I going to do interviews, observations, enquêtes, what's the word again in English? Somebody help out.
Say it in Dutch, please.
Sorry, surveys. I'm going to do observations, interviews, surveys, sample tests, customer reviews. I mean, there are so many things you can use. There are like more than I think 50 techniques you can use to get to a certain point. So it's about choosing the right tools and techniques. And then you have some of these schools, like I mentioned, the BCS, the IRBA, the IREP. They all have their way of approach. So I think if you would like to learn more about that, then definitely look into those different.
But I think it's a very good answer which you gave, because to make an organization aware of change, there is not like one single theory or model which actually does that. There are like a lot of ways, depending on the kind of organization, to make people aware of the change and also want to like adopt to that change. So thanks for your answer. I think it's a good.
Yeah. Exactly. No, I probably if you would have somebody that could, then he would be she would be very rich.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure if there are any other questions, but I think this is also one important one, because I have heard this now many times in between some of the questions. So this is how I personally think about it. a business analyst is any person who performs business analysis activities. So it's not that you have to have the role like on your forehead saying, I'm a business analyst. In my opinion, everybody is a business analyst. I think if you have generally interested in improving your organization going forward, you're basically a business analyst. You're analyzing a business to see where are opportunities for improvement, which can be everybody. It can be project manager, consultant, admin, architect, developer. Everyone can wear the hat of a business analyst. The only thing that you see now more and more is that there are so many activities you can perform that they say, okay, you do it full time. And then it becomes a business analyst, it becomes a formal role. But basically, you're just doing the activities anybody else could do as well. I mean, as a product owner, for instance, you should be a very good business analyst because you're constantly talking with stakeholders about your product specifically. The only difference with a more, I would say, general business analyst is that you really have to have this bird's view. I already touched upon it earlier, where, of course, I also have a big Salesforce stamp on my hat being in the ecosystem for so long. So people think, oh, you're Salesforce. Say, yes, I know Salesforce very well. I really love the product and I really think that we can do great things for your company, but that's not my starting point. My starting point is what are you doing today in the business? And then I can see, oh, by the way, you're using Salesforce and you're using that specific product feature. I think if we would use this, it will improve your XYZ and blah, blah, blah. Because I know Salesforce, I can provide options very quickly. Not saying solutions, but I can provide options very quickly. So as some people ask, is it good or not good to already have a specific niche, as in this case, the technology or the industry? I think, yeah, it depends a bit also on what you prefer. I personally like, it's not that I don't like the technology and that's why I moved to the business side. No, I really like the technology and I want to bring it together. So my goal is really show organizations that Salesforce is really a tool that can help you change and drive that those objectives that you want to achieve. I speak Salesforce language, I speak business language, at least that's what I'm learning now more and more, so I can bring those together more easily. So that's where my strength is. So if people would hire me to be a business analyst on creating a next, I don't know, a procurement app, then I would probably say, well, to be honest, I think you can have a better BA that is suitable for those situations. Right? I believe really that my strength is in bringing the world of Salesforce, which is often in companies also broader than Salesforce alone, but how to then also bring those technologies together. So currently I'm also working with Pega. Well, okay, never did that. So how are Salesforce and Pega working together? So that's also learning you new stuff every day. But again, objective, we do it for the business. And we will try to create the technology as is to make sure we can adhere to those business needs. So what are then some of the activities as a business analyst you could be thinking of? These are just some high-level things. Map business context. The word context is really important. I will highlight that later. The word context is really important. You're the one that needs to understand the bigger picture. If you're going to go into solutioning with the team, then the team will only know what you bring to the table. You know what I mean? So if you say we're going to improve the sales process, then I will bring all the information about the sales process, and then that's the solution we're going to build. But then all of a sudden, I realized that, oh, but actually to understand how to build a good sales process, I also need to understand how is actually the handover from marketing to sales. Because in the end, it turned out that that was where the issue was. So we're building this thing based on my input for sales. So we built a new sales process, but then all of a sudden we realized that it didn't really get to the point of the issue, which is the handover from marketing to sales. So one touch point I'm already sharing, which is one of the tips and tricks I have as a BA, is as a BA, you shouldn't have a scope, which is a weird word because everybody is always afraid about scope and we go outside of scope. And I will touch upon that later. But as a BA, I think you should have this context, bird's eye, unscoped view of an organization. You, of course, identify and manage key stakeholders. So I think that's what I touched upon earlier. That's really an important part. You are in contact with the business. They think that Well, sometimes for me it feels like, okay, they now put all their stuff, their feelings, their wishes, their needs, they're putting into my arms, into my responsibility, and I now need to do something with it and make, in the end, something beautiful needs to come out of there, right? So it's a big responsibility. So I also have to make sure that I manage that properly. So that's not going to be like, oh, thank you for the requirements. 5 sprints later, we come back, here's your product. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, but that's not really what I was looking for. So that's something you need to manage. You can be preparing business cases so to justify why we do this. And the managing of requirements. I think this is the activity that most business analysts, if you have that job title, you are doing that. But a product owner or maybe even a sales admin can get requirements, right? So everybody in a sense is managing requirements, but it's about how do you trace and track that these requirements are actually the ones that are really helping the business. And don't forget, one important thing as well is you have to always keep in mind also ensure user adoption. Especially working with Salesforce, this is a key options come into solutions.
Luuk, I think we have a small issue with your audio. Or maybe it's only for me. Can somebody respond on chat if you also have issue? No, it's for,
Yes.
for many people. Can you talk again? No. You're breaking up. Somehow something happened. Maybe battery in your headset? Or maybe cable, because you're breaking up suddenly. It suddenly happened. Can you talk again? You're on mute? Something happened, yeah. Yeah, you're breaking up. Yeah. I think something with audio. So maybe if you have another this headphones, or I will pause the recording meantime.
Yeah, I think something went wrong with my computer. Okay, let me get back to the share part. Where were we? This one. Okay.
It looks like everyone is happy that you have the sound back.
Good. Okay, check. And we are going to continue. Yes, I was about finishing this slide.
Yeah.
So
Can I comment on last item?
Yeah.
Is it about evaluation that what we did, looking on KPI and seeing that we achieved strategic objective by looking on last point results?
Yeah, so you say, how do we measure that, you mean?
Yeah, because sometimes you want to measure after 6 months, and this is, I think this item, ensure user adoption, is the one that can show you.
Yeah, so what I'm indeed mainly referring to in this part is that whenever you, so if you talk with the business about requirements and about, okay, how people work, then sometimes you will get solutions proposed where you think like, okay, I'm not sure if a user will really adopt this way of working. You know what I mean? So it's having this feeling, okay, but I don't believe that this is, as I also talk about the user experience, because if you have a bad user experience, user adoption will be lower. So it's all, so what I mean mainly here in this context is, as a business analyst, really keep the focus on not only the high level, oh, we need to improve our sales KPI, but also look at, okay, but to improve the sales KPI, people need to use the system. In order to use the system, it at least should have a good user experience, and it should be thought of, okay, how is an agent actually performing the work they're doing, which in the end results in a bad or a good user adoption. So as a business analyst, you always have to take that into consideration, that it's all about also the user needing to adopt this new solution, that you can then indeed measure it afterwards to be successful. I agree. So before you start a project where you specifically want to show that an improvement was worthwhile, is that make sure that you take a baseline or at least create a benchmark to which you're going to measure against later. That's often what people forget. But they say, oh, we now have this project implemented. Let's evaluate after 6 months. And then all of a sudden, after 6 months, you ask, so how are we going to actually measure that it was better? Do we know where we came from? And then often people say, oh, no, actually, we didn't really measure that. So then then your numbers will be like soft, right? You're like, yes, I think it's improved. So always make sure that before you start a new initiative where you really want to prove your the improvement you made, make sure you create a benchmark in the beginning so that you can hold it against it in whatever implementation time, and 6 months after, did we actually reach that improvement? And I think especially this one is easy to manage or to measure, right? In Salesforce especially.
Yeah. And one extra question, comment about key stakeholders.
Yeah.
Often you also have external stakeholders, like partners involved in your business model.
Yeah.
Probably it's not always only internal stakeholders, right?
No, definitely. So again, putting it to the example I'm working in currently. So I am, of course, I'm self-employed. So the company I'm working for now hired me to become business analyst. So I'm closely to the business. So I have my management stakeholders that really wants to improve the sales process. Then I have the users, the people in the local countries that actually work there, but also their management. But then on the in this case, we have the implementation side. I'm working with a partner. There are also even 2 partners. And some people are self-employed, like the product owner. He's also just like me, independent. So a lot of people involved, not all from the same company. So they all have their beliefs, their way of working, their frameworks, their whatever they bring to the table to, they all want to make it a success, which makes it sometimes hard for a business analyst, because you want to keep the objective view, right? So as a business analyst, it's really important to make things explicit. And with that, I mean, don't go for assumptions, because what I know what a lot of often people from the outside do is making assumptions. Because they say, oh, but I've been in these sales organizations many times. This is probably how they do it. That's the worst answer you can get. Then you have to be cautious. Because then I would say, okay, I will do my part now and I will try and figure that out. And I will come back to you with an answer to see whether your assumptions are correct. And then we can talk about whether that solution you're now proposing is the right way forward. I currently have big discussions on the way how we measure a KPI. Well, I think we all know that KPIs are basically set by business. And then all of a sudden they propose a solution where that KPI basically changed, going from normally could be up to 80%, would now in the new situation become a 40%. Which is fine if we all agree on that this is the way how we're going to now measure this new, the new solution is going to measure this KPI. We need to communicate that, and if everybody agrees, then I'm fine. And in the end, so I challenge that. I say, well, okay, let me go to the business and let me verify whether I will give them the easy example. Like, this is scenario how we do it currently. This is scenario B. Result is X. Result is Y. What do you prefer? Open, objective. I don't have any preference. I don't care. And then they say, well, it should be option A. And then I say, okay, we're building currently option B. No, that cannot happen. And then, discussions get started, and, and that is your role as a BA, bringing that together. And that's exactly what I did. And now we come to an agreement we all agree on. So whenever we release this new product or process or feature, everybody understands what the impact was on the KPI. No?
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Look, so you don't advise them how to do things. You just listen to them and get the requirement and give it to IT people. This is what you do. You don't advise them how to do it.
Yeah, well, that's actually a very good point you make, because in essence, how I see it is yes, as a business analyst, you're also a consultant. So you also should have an opinion, you should have an advice, but your advice shouldn't be based on feelings or subjective things that you think assume are the right way. I really like to work, for instance, with data, making my proof points with data. So, and that's what I was referring to in the beginning. I rather like to think in options than in a solution. So what I do is basically, I go to the business and say, hey, this is the objective you want to reach. We have 3 options. Option A has these pros and cons. Option B has these pros and cons. Option C has these pros and cons. Looking at your organization as what I now see and I understand from it and where you want to go as a business in the future, I advise option A is the better one, because I don't know, you can talk about things like implementation time will be faster, therefore you reach your goals faster, but maybe you have to think about maintainability on the long run. But making those pros and cons for every scenario, you advise on the scenario, but you're not a decision maker. The decision will be made by the end. Yeah, the key stakeholder that is in the end, the one that is accountable for the change. Then you say, okay, well, we have discussed it. I have mine advice. You still chose B. That's fine. And we will bring it to the solution team. If you would be a good BA, you probably already hold it against the team to also give their pros and cons, also from maybe more technical or architectural point of view. But then in the end, the decision has been made and this is how we're going to do it. Yeah, so yes, advising is a key part of it, but not decision making. But you cannot give one advice. That's not an advice. Options and an advice. Yeah.
Thank you.
So in my try to make it very, very explicit how I see the role of a BA, especially talking about the requirements part.
I have a question to what you just said about giving options and not really slightly steering them a little bit, I guess. Do you sometimes purposefully give a couple of bad options to make them choose the option you want them to choose?
Good point. No, I'm not purposely giving them bad options. The only thing that you will sometimes see is that there are actually not a lot of good alternative options, but you probably end up with one alternative option. And yes, of course, it's difficult if you already know the system, in this case Salesforce, very well. And yes, you always have this bias, right? You think, yeah, this is the best solution. So I will still, sorry, in my advice, I will definitely bring it up to the table, right? Like, really, this is really my preferred option, but it cannot be because I feel so. It's because I believe so because of these reasons. So it's not about how many options you give. It's also about the arguments you have against those options that make sense, that somebody can actually make a decision on. If you give somebody 2 options, say this one is cheaper and this one is expensive. Yeah, which one will you probably get? The cheaper one. But if the expensive one turns out that on the long run, less maintainable, higher customer satisfaction rate, blah, 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 then, oh, wait a minute, but no, wait, then the expense. As you have to have good arguments and not just like, oh, one thing. So arguments are really important, and I like to have a really objective, preferred, measured. But that's sometimes difficult. But that would be my approach.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would like to comment. You would probably not think in a sense of bad options. You will think about options you considered, and then you put justifications, and usually you will do benchmarking, some kind of benchmarking between them, and then you say, this is what I did. This is 2-3 options. This was my measurement. How did I measure options? And then this is what I advise. Yeah. So I think bad option. It's kind of You would like not to use this because maybe one of them will be bad, but you spend some time on research, on evaluation, testing. So yeah.
True. No, exactly. So looking at time, I'll just this slide is not too much to be discussed, but more so to give an idea of where is now this split happening. So how I would see, so I'd be able to find the common need. Business and user requirements. So there are different types of requirements. We'll talk about later, but really from the business stakeholders in order for the solution consultant and the architect to translate these requirements into a solution, design, and functional requirements so that admins and developers start building it. So just to put a bit about, how do different roles work together? Where do it? So this is basically how I see it, where I am basically with red letters providing the context for everybody involved in the build of the solution, that they understand why they're building it, for who they are building it for, what should be the end goal of that, what they are building with all the needs and requirements, so then they can come up with a proper solution that fits into the way we do it in our IT landscape. So this is something I tried to say. I think this is one specific question we got, so I really want to make sure that we capture this one. So how to get started in a new industry? I think first of all, maybe as I already write down, is don't forget, yes, starting in a new industry is always a challenge, which you have to learn new things. But don't think that your previous knowledge about any other industry isn't relevant anymore. As today, you will see more and more these all kinds of cross-industry solutions where, look at the organization I'm currently working in, where automotive industry is much more now focusing on online selling. So basically it's becoming e-commerce and what's really tied to retail, which I do have a lot of experience in. So actually I could bring my retail knowledge into the automotive industry and help, get these cross collaboration ideas. But I think to best describe how to get started in a new industry, I can tell you how I do it. Not saying that is the way to do it, but my most recent experience was that was the first time I jumped into the automotive industry. I have experience in airline, leisure, travel, retail, but I didn't have much experience in automotive industry unless driving a car myself, but that's about it. So what I start doing is learn, right? So you really have to learn. You have to invest time in learning about this industry. So the first thing I do is look at what I say called the macro trend. So you will start reading news. And I think you now have nice apps that specifically based on a topic can feed you news, like the Google News app, for instance, I'm using. But also, study materials that, for instance, the amount of car sales has already gone down since 2014. So how will that impact the fact that I'm now working for a company that is basically, well, not selling cars but leasing cars? How will you then bring that together? Do we need to change? And you see also with now the macro trend of Corona impacting all industries, how does it impact this industry? We all have seen working from home. People working for big organizations that have leasing contracts. If we're not going to go back to normal anymore and full everyday travel, will we still have these contracts? How will it impact, in this case, leasing companies? How will other leasing companies do that? How is Tesla proposing the market? How is Polestar, like these new car manufacturers, how are they doing it? They have a full online presence versus maybe some of the leasing companies don't. So yeah, there's not one way of doing it, but I always say high level. First, you do your external analysis. Okay, what is this industry? Read news about automotive industry, articles, researches, and then start to combine it with the internal analysis. So you can start already by looking at a website. In this case, working for the Leaseplan, I can see on their website exactly their mission statements, what they want to achieve. What are their objectives, what are the goals. So whenever I'm now in a project, I'm trying to map that what I'm doing to those things. And if I don't see any match, I ask the question. So hey, by the way, just for curiosity, I see that what I'm currently doing does not match with what you're writing there. In this case, it's not true, right? It does match, but in case it didn't, you could have that discussion and ask, hey, by the way, does it actually belong to any important objectives of your company? And then you're going to do your internal analysis about the structure. As you have all kinds of models for that. I always use the 7S model of McKinsey. That is just taking, okay, what is the structure? What is the style of the company? What is what are the systems they're using? And that's drilling it down, looking at competitors. That's basically how I go about it. And often I simply put, if I think it's important, put it in a document, so that I can always reach back to it later. If I think, hey, I read something and there's actually interesting in the discussion I'm now having with somebody, so maybe I can bring it up. Because then they see, oh, you read about the automotive industry. Oh, that's actually interesting, right? It's trying to baseline with the people you're working with. They probably do it, so you should do it as well, especially business people. Just looking at time, I have time left to continue, but just making sure that if people want to drop off, then of course free to go. If you want to stay online, that's fine as well. I still have definitely 15 minutes left to continue, so just opening up for questions if you want.
I think we are good to stay. There are people who are dropping, just send me a message and we will share a recording afterwards. So
yeah.
And thank you, Luuk, for giving some extra time.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So any questions on this specific quiz? I know this was also a very explicit question before.
Yeah, it was my question because it's important, so my approach is really I try to get a good book maybe on industry subject.
Yeah.
And looking on any, because it's a matter of time, you can spend, if you have unlimited time, then your learning process will be different. So
No,
there
exactly.
is a very good source describing business models and how company implement business models. I need to find the link and share it, but basically it tells you this is business model and this is how Uber does it. And this kind of snapshot you want to get initially, and then go deeper depends on your need. Yeah.
I think there's many models. If the business model canvas, what is the value chain, going down into maybe competitive analysis, which is the 5 strengths of Porter. Some of you might know. You have the 7S model for internal analysis from McKinsey. I think. So maybe jumping to the next slide, which kind of ties back into that, is how to become a BA or a better BA. It's all about study, learn, apply, fail, and learn, right? It's not something you will automatically do. No, you really have to invest time. I put here a triangle of, I think, would be some of the points to where you can focus on. So it's either the I would say top angle, which is the technology side of things. In this case, yes, I'm then also a Salesforce certified, so I like to work with the Salesforce technology, so that's my niche. But in the end, that doesn't make me a good BA. So I wanted to learn more about how to become a good BA. So learning about frameworks, about models, just the things that we're just discussing about, all the things that might help in techniques and tools to really help you in your job. Then you could look into those different schools I mentioned earlier, like the BCS or the IIBA or the IREP. I have done the IIBA. Personally, I like it because they also work with Salesforce, so that's just a match there. They're a Canadian origin company, but they also have a little community in the Netherlands. So you have certifications, different levels as well. So I'm going to go for the next one in 2021. And so that's where I try to learn really about the job, like the tools, the techniques, the frameworks to help you really like, have I applied the right technique for the right goal, etc. And then you have the what I call business side, which I also did a course in last year. In this case, it's the object management group. They are really all about process management. So really talk business language. Okay, how to create processes. How do you manage change? What kind of models or frameworks would you use and apply there? So actually, it's those three, like say areas, sort of business/process, technology, and really tools and frameworks and techniques. Those three together have helped me at least to become a much better BA than I was before. There also you learn a lot about these models that you can apply immediately in practice. I can imagine there's maybe some questions around these two topics. Any questions?
Yeah. What is your view on this British organization that also has BA certification?
Yeah, so that's the BCS, right? It's the British school. Yeah. So the BCS is more focused around, I would say, strategic business analysis. Again, you have all entry-level certificates, so also they will not only focus on strategy, but going up, it's really about strategic business analysis, where the IRAP is a German school, is really focused on requirements management. So really specifically, okay, how to get requirements, how to manage, how to trace, how to validate, how to so really keep a good track. And the IIBA is actually, I think it's one of the newest schools. They really focus on standardizing the work of a business analyst by providing them a framework or an approach with all, of course, the different common techniques and tools you have in place to then go and work with them. Which I think they are a bit more focused on the practical side. Would be my thing. It would be my feeling now. I never did BCS. I read something about it. I learned something, but so I don't exactly know the differences. But that's a bit how I feel about these three.
I believe also PMI has now BA certification, US based, right?
Oh, is that true? I didn't know that. I know that they're really okay, yeah, they're really focused on project management indeed. So, but yeah, I think it's, to be honest, it is a hot topic, right? You see business analyst roles, like the real full-time roles, become available more and more. So you see that there is a trend and there is a need to have these people in the organization, especially when we focus to more and more different technology stacks. It's not only one tool you have anymore in your company. No, you have many different ones. So you need somebody in between there to actually, okay, wait, okay, what do we need for a business side? And then let me see with all the tools how to fit things together and come together with those teams to come with a proper solution. Because business will be drive nuts.
Yeah. One question about applicability of certifications for starting in BA field. What is your view on this?
Well, I think it's well, talking then for the IIBA one is the one I did to indeed with the goal of, okay, pragmatic. I want to be better BA, so I would like to learn an approach that I can hold me to, or how do you say that? It's like first I was like on a big grass field and I didn't really know which way to go, and I think the certification made me at least paving a path in that green grass, knowing a bit where to go. That doesn't say that if you do the school or you do the certification that you are the best business analyst, because in the end I think the key word is apply. You really need to apply your learnings. So for instance, okay, they have a framework about, okay, you plan, you go with your stakeholders, and there's a whole like approach you can apply. But then you all of a sudden come into a business, speed is of the essence. So you have to all of a sudden skip steps, like, oh shit, but okay, which steps should I then skip? Which can I skip? Okay, maybe make a less of a plan and just, go a bit more freestyle. Oh, can I do that? And then you learn. And then I realized like, oh, okay, so in this situation, you can maybe do a bit less on that step, focus more on this step. But now I realize, oh, because I didn't really plan, I now end up in, okay, I have now a shitload of requirements, but I didn't really know anymore the whole structure of where to put what. And so I really had to plan that better. And that's how you learn, me too, every day, basically. But applying is the key word. So yes, it helped me 100% because it gives you some angle or some hooks, right? Like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, check, I'm gonna do that. It gives you a feeling of, okay, I'm in the right direction, I'm doing the right things. You see that people also respond to, oh, okay, he knows what he's doing. But in fact, I still make mistakes, but now it at least becomes less obvious. Because I think, of course, everybody makes mistakes. But really applying, learn from it and improve. Any other questions on this topic? I think I have 1 or 2 slides left.
Any questions? I think, one of the options is just, to think about what type of BA things you do during, your existing job and how to expand this, tool set of different BA techniques and just to apply them. Because you don't need to have a BA title to do a good BA job.
No. I think a key thing, what I do a lot is I challenge a lot. That's actually what I currently see being probably my biggest task, other than writing down requirements, having requirements sessions with the business where I try to talk about what the needs are. But it's also about challenging, like, okay, why do you need it? Or if the team suggests a solution, say, oh, okay, but I don't think this is going to be a good solution, because also knowing that they have these and these and these feelings, and so it might be that you did forget to write down something, and then all of a sudden the solution is proposed to say, oh wait, let me indeed rephrase, can add it. So it's constantly iterations of back and forward between the business and IT. It's back and forward. It's not gather requirements, build a product, deliver a product. That's the old-fashioned, that's the waterfall approach, which I believe as a business analyst, that puts a lot of pressure on you as a business analyst. So if I would be a business analyst and somebody would tell you we're going to do waterfall, then I would be cautious, because then it means that all eyes are on you. You are responsible for getting the requirements. So you have to have a one-time right. They build a product, they deliver it in 6 months or a year. And if something is not in there, or I don't know, so for some reason people change their minds and you didn't really keep track on that, they will blame you, right? So keep that in mind. Try to have this agile approach. So constantly back and forward, even though you are working waterfall, then still as a BA, learn yourself to continuously check in with the team. Hey, how we're doing? Is this according to plan? Check in with the business. Hey, by the way, we're building this, and are you still okay? Or do you have new things? So keep yourself, be involved. Keep yourself involved. Yeah. Okay, some of the challenges, I think I already spoke a lot about them, so I will quickly highlight them once again here. So what I see is that I already discussed the word scope. So the challenge on the scope part as a BA, I really believe that you shouldn't have a scope in terms of understanding the business, but there should be a scope of the objective. Right? So that's a really big difference. So it's about understanding the whole company, but we're trying to reach the objective. But by understanding the whole business, you probably are more easier to come up with a solution to get to that objective. But it cannot be that the scope is this, because then you will end up anyway in some kind of waterfall or a never-ending requirement cycle. So project scope is important. Be really clear up front. What is my objective? What are we trying to achieve? And put it on paper and make it explicit again. Yeah. So that's a challenge I see a lot of people facing. Another challenge, which is specifically Salesforce, and I face that on a daily basis. Salesforce is a platform. It's not a freaking website. So business, especially, they're used to see, oh yeah, apps and front-end applications and websites and everything to be designed beautifully according to whatever wish and requirement there is. Salesforce has best practices, and it is a platform built for certain reasons, and also with a lot of things in mind of 150 in the meantime, I think 200,000 customers applied best practices. So I'm not saying it's always 100% to what you want as a business, but make them aware that the company made a decision to go for a platform. So let's work with the platform. Let's not create a platform on top of a platform, right? So that's I feel is a lot of the things I as a BA am challenged in. So yeah, why can't we do this? We can build everything, right? Yes, we can build everything, but we do not want to build everything because maybe it will be released in the next 3 months, or maybe the maintainability is actually too expensive to keep that up for the long run, right? So it's all these bigger discussions often would probably involve, I don't know. And again, don't battle this yourself. Take the people along that can help in this discussion. But that's definitely one challenge I see happening a lot in my role. Also have clear roles is important. So even though you're maybe not a full-time business analyst, but you are interested in these activities, then still make sure that you have at least one role that you are responsible for. So if it's not business analyst, then what is it that I'm responsible for? Because I fully believe that focus is of the essence. So if you don't get a full-time BA role, because you're a tester, or you're an admin, or you're a consultant, do that role very well, but then apply the things maybe from this session or the way of thinking and the asking of questions in that role to come to see whether we are in the right direction. But it's really, having clear roles, clear responsibilities. I really believe in that. We don't have all these roles for nothing, right? It's not because, oh, let's put a role in something and then, no, stick up to the responsibility of that role. Stakeholders, I think I have managed that already many, many times. Engage, engage, engage. I cannot be talking more about that. It's crucial. They are your customer, whether you're internal or external, that doesn't mind. They are your customer. Yeah? So engage, engage, engage. Very important one, and a definitely underestimated topic, requirements. I didn't really talk a lot about it, but often if you talk business analysts, it's talking about, oh, they gather requirements. If somebody will tell you, hey, can you gather requirements? Then I would ask very politely and friendly, saying, zip it, I'm not gathering requirements. You elicit, it's a difficult word, elicit requirements. What does elicit basically mean? It's you extract information that can help you come to requirements and needs. Again, there is I would not say there is nobody in the world, but I have come across not so many people that I'm organizing an interview, I'm going to say requirement session, and I'm going to sit in front of that person and I'm going to have my notepad ready and say, well, we're going to build this new sales solution. What do you want? And they give a full list of things they want. And if they give that list, then you have to think yourself, okay, now I have this 2,500 features, but actually I never asked why we're actually doing this. It's really where you can differentiate a good BA from maybe call it junior, just starting BA, is you will hear them say, oh, I'm going to gather requirements. I'm saying, no, I'm not going to gather requirements. I'm gonna get an understanding of the business needs, and I will translate that into requirements. And that's called requirements management. That's a whole process in itself. It's about extracting, elicitation. It's about validation. It's about traceability. Where did they came from? When do they change? If you're in a big project, more requirements can come up. What was the prioritization of it? Who did it came from? Was it somebody else? Is it a change? Is it existing scope? So all of that entails is requirements management. And that's where the IRAP school, so that's the German school, really focuses on how to really do that well. Because it's really, I would call it some magic in itself. And then one of the things is structure. I think a common challenge we all have in our roles, not only as a BA, it's about how to keep structure in a project. Working with Jira, working with Confluence, I think many of you know, you have the user stories, but how do you actually keep the context? Right? As a BA, you need to keep the context. So I use, for instance, Confluence a lot to describe it as, okay, we have the business objectives, then we have the process flows, how they were as is, so how they currently are. I describe where we want to go, so that highlights a bit of the pain points we have, where to focus on, and I map those process steps to the user stories in Jira, so that everybody who doesn't understand what they're exactly working on, they don't understand the context, they can link to Confluence, they see the full process flow again, and say, okay, we're now in the ordering process where they want to actually improve the shopping cart experience, whatever. Right? So it's really about traceability, so tracing requirements, which is part of requirements management, and about prioritization. I think structure, having a good structure is important. And that's something that you normally would start doing in the plan phase. I have that's more structure of the IBA one. You plan, how are you going to work? Which tools are you going to use? Where are you going to, where can people find knowledge? Where are you going to provide context, etc. I'm quickly going to the last slide and then maybe some quick questions. So just some quick tips and tricks from my side. I already, this one I didn't mention yet. Important one, from day one on the project, create a definition guide. Get everyone on the same page. I already used the example of the business was looking at the KPI this way, and the guys building the solution thought about the KPI that way. Yeah, that is a recipe for failure, right? Even discussions about the word customer. Oh, I thought you meant internal customer. No, I mean external customer. Okay. It's stupid things, but that will sometimes decide how a solution is going to be built, right? If you don't have those terminologies right. Or having the same issues about Salesforce is using terminologies, lead, opportunity, account. Account? Oh, you mean a customer? As in a contact? Or building, or what? You know, it's these stupid little discussions that can really be solved by having a clear definition guide from day one. If I start a project with Salesforce people, I throw up a slide to at least explain the common wordings. What do we talk about when we talk about a report? What we talk about when we talk about a dashboard? What's an account? What's a lead? What's an opportunity? It's those standard things, the standard object, basically. I just, highlight quickly, and then you start to add more of the business-specific knowledge, especially abbreviations. That's to really create that definition guide. So don't be a BA, be a connector, change maker, build relationship. It again ties back into, if you position yourself, I'm business analyst, I'm going to analyze your needs. If you constantly put that up as your introduction, then people will think, oh, okay, there's a guy again that comes and come up with great solutions and change our way of working. Try to position yourself really as, okay, I'm here to see how you work, how I can help improve the way we work, and I would love to do that by learning more from you instead of already proposing all kinds of things. So really, it's about building relationships. This one I already mentioned. Always go out of scope. If you're working on a sales project, definitely also spend some time with marketing. Because I really found so many things that I think, okay, but sales is really thinking differently about this. So there I already had my first mismatch, and so I brought those together, and that helped me as well in the discussions going forward. Yeah, get clear objectives. I think that's important, especially being a partner or somebody from outside of the company. It's really important to get clear objectives. Yeah, just come up with a good service solution. Okay, what should I do then? It's vague. Make it again word explicit. Definitely in the Salesforce world, learn to work with the Salesforce Lightning Design System. Because one of the things is what I feel is really helping me is making things visual. You have these sayings like icky wiki and what is the other one? Well, these are these abbreviations as icky wiki is I know what I want if I see it. You know what I mean? If you ask a business, what do you want? We're going to improve your sales process. What do you want? Instead of showing up a nice Salesforce screen saying, hey, you see this process here? How do you would see this process in front of you? That will make the discussion much more easier, right? So this is a really cool thing about Salesforce, the fact that you have the Lightning Design System. Everything is there. So you can use Sketch. I even have another tool I can show you in a minute that is really awesome. It does cost money. So for partners, you can maybe ask to get a license, and also for companies, it can really benefit if you're really full-time working on these kind of things. It can benefit you. And the last thing, it's a Mark Benioff saying, and I really like it. Start with the end in mind, and always put on your beginner's mind hat. Even though you're new in an industry, you're new in a company, that doesn't say you don't bring any relevant things to the table. It's often the things that come from the people that don't know. They come with some bright solution that people never thought of. I mean, people look with these, eye claps on. They go because it's the way it is always. Just really go back and say, okay, I'm going to work and take the example. Okay, I'm going to improve the sales process. Do I have a lot of knowledge about the sales process? Not specifically, especially not in my new industry where I'm now in. I mean, I don't know how to sell a car. But then, okay, put yourself in the beginner's mind. Okay, different hats, customer hat. I want to lease a car. How would I do that? Online? Would I release a car online? Would I do that via WhatsApp? It's quite an investment you're going to make, right? So, but it's really about thinking about this. Just putting up with knowing nothing is sometimes a good starting point. So that's something I really like from his book that he describes this. And I really applied it, and it really helps. So this is the tool I use, which is don't think many of you know it. It's also a Canadian company. Coincidentally, I come across it when I was working on a project, and I thought, I really need to make it visual. I want to show it, but I don't want to fire up a whole demo org. Which, to be honest, for an BA, that's then too much of a job. That would be more for going into piloting or prototyping, etc. But this is actually a prototyping tool for Salesforce Lightning. And you can literally create these screens. I made that in 15 minutes because they have a standard repository with things that you can just drag in. You can even create workable modals. So by clicking next, you go to the next screen. And it's more visual. So it's nothing working technology, but it's a visual that really makes it, again, explicit for somebody. Okay, so that's the screen I'm getting. Oh, but in that case, I want the button over there. You know what I mean? So it really helps to get this to the business, making things visual. That's one of the techniques I use a lot.
Yeah, I use this tool, and I showed it once, when we had a face-to-face meeting, I think a year ago. I like it. I think it's a great tool that should be in tool set, and it's just speed ups explanation, prototyping.
Exactly. Of course, it will take you maybe a few hours to really learn, okay, how does it work and how can I get my work about it, but then it is actually quite easy. Yeah, I saw your comments. Salesforce is going to buy soon. Yes, I would say, yeah, it could be potential buy, because it's really one of the cool things they're working on as well, is that they're working on an export option. So you can actually export a page, put it in here, change things, show it, say, hey, is this what you want? Yes. And then boom, upload it again with all the CSS. I really like it. So I had some content, and I don't have shares or anything, But I reached out to the owner because I really want to say, hey, this is really something cool you've been building. And he said, yeah, we're trying to. They're also a former partner of Salesforce, and they then focus now on specifically this. So yeah, I really like the guys. Nice small team, and I really believe that this is going to be the future. Yeah, they don't have stocks, so unfortunately, otherwise I would definitely buy them. But yeah, some of the books. The one for Dutch people, definitely this book I really like. Again, I don't have shares or anything. I'm not selling. This is a pretty thick book, but this is a guy that did all the schools, PCS, IRBA, IRAP. He did everything, so he can explain. He's basically gathering those best practices into one single book. So I can definitely recommend that one. The first one is more about indeed how do you also do some analysis. So they're really taking you from the hand. Okay, when I'm starting in an organization, what do I do first? Read the company website. Yeah, so pretty pragmatic approach. This OSAP 2 certification guide is really about the process management part if you're interested in that. So this book, reading this book will also make you possible to apply for the certification if you want to. And this is the IIBA certification, the BABOK, which is the Business Analysis Body of Knowledge Guide. And they, basically, if you study this, you could also apply for the IIBA ECBA certification if you want. So yeah.
May I interrupt? I just was curious. In the past, I went to medical school and we have our certifications. Do you have to keep up with the certifications each year as a BA or pay a membership?
No, not all of them. So this one you have for 5 years, which is it's all you have entry levels and you have different levels going up, right? So there are the higher you become, then you have to be indeed keeping up with some of the certificates. But it's not as a Salesforce where you have to do 3 times a year or sometimes every year. It's not like that. The IIBA will become more prominent when you become a bit higher, so you have 3 levels. The difference from an IIBA, the reason why I also like this one more on top of the others, you need to show experience. So for the entry level, you do not need to show experience. You only need to show that you did 7 hours of professional study, which, for instance, this session could be already 1.5, almost 2 hours spending on learning about business analysis. So you can upload that in the system, which in this case is Salesforce, and they will keep track on your activities. If you want to go for the next level, you have to show that you had at least 3,700 hours of business analysis experience in practice on different knowledge areas. And so if you see people having this certification, you know they have practical experience. Going to the top certification, it's even 7,500 hours. That's multiple years, right? So you cannot just get all the certification. Hey, I'm a perfect best BA because I have this certification, which sometimes, if to be very honest, in Salesforce, you can just get all the certifications without experience. If you're really a good learner and a good studier, you can remind things, but it doesn't say anything about your experience. This one is explicitly looking at that. That's why I also favor this a bit more, and I want to go for my second one. Hopefully I can get it next year. So I did a lot of almost full-time BA role this year, so I can hopefully get up to those hours. But it also has to be differentiated around different 7 knowledge areas. So you have to specifically say, okay, where did you get the knowledge from, and which company, and can you give a contact? So it's really it's really professional.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, this were it for the slides. So I'm still